All right, welcome back to the Golf Podcast. And today we're going to dig in. We got to talk about LIV, right?
It's a big topic.
It's the big topic. And I know a lot of people, well, you're either on one side or the other on this. Some people are completely like fatigued by hearing so much about LIV. Other people just can't seem to get enough of it, right?
Exactly.
But I would say part of why everyone's so fatigued is because the coverage has been off the charts. I mean, we're even seeing there are sports media outlets that don't even traditionally touch on golf, and they're even reporting on and talking about LIV. And I think there's a good reason why, and that's that undeniably, whether you're for it, against it, whatever it may be, and we're going to read a lot of your own comments. A lot of you guys jumped in the Golficity Clubhouse. If you're not already part of that, make sure you go to golficity.com/clubhouse to join. But a lot of people are saying, like, similarly, like, whether they're for it or against it, they can't look away. They can't not watch it.
Right. I
right.
mean,
but it's undeniably the biggest shakeup and change to professional golf in decades. You can't say otherwise. It's the reality.
I mean, hands down. I mean, I think another reason to sprinkle on is, where have we seen this before? I mean, we've seen other leagues. We've seen like Canadian football leagues or whatever the case may be, but they're not an ultimate threat. Right. Poaching players, taking some of the biggest stars. You know, you weren't seeing a Canadian football league trying to poach Eli Manning. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, this is different, and it almost feels like an attack. And, you know, Monahan, who's the commissioner of the PGA Tour, is saying he welcomes the healthy competition, but this is not. This is a threat. Right.
So that's the thing. Isn't all competition in a way a threat?
It should be.
And so I want to talk about, we're going to talk about how the PGA Tour has responded. One thing, though, that I want to put on the table before we get into this is that, and I don't want to speak for you, but I mean, I think I know you well enough. You can tell me if it's otherwise, is that, one, neither one of us are particularly, you know, involved in politics in any one way or another. Right. I mean, I think especially here in the States, politics over the past however many years has been a mess. And I honestly keep it as far at arm's reach as possible. And the second thing would be is that neither one of us are by any means experts on international affairs.
Right, absolutely.
So I'd say, first of all, understand from that standpoint. I want to talk about it today. And of course, there's no doubt that you can't talk about LIV without talking about the controversial side of it with the whole Saudi-backed money and all that type of stuff. I want to talk about it primarily today from the standpoint of golf fans. And that's why we polled everyone in the Clubhouse, like, what is the temperature on this? Are people watching it? Are they not watching it? That's the thing. So first, let's kind of get that out of the way and talk about the Saudi side of it, right? They've even, like, in Phil, in his original comments where he got himself in a little bit of hot water over it, even he acknowledged some of the atrocities that have happened. Has. So the money is certainly not clean in that way. The question that comes up for me is that why all of a sudden is the PGA Tour, and I could be wrong here, so if I'm wrong, you guys let me know in the comments, but why is the PGA Tour taking such a hard stance against the Saudi stuff when in the past, players, weren't they allowed to play in the Saudi Invitational?
They were.
Right. Yeah, I'm thinking like you had, who was it? You had DJ won there and Varner.
Yes, Varner won there, right.
So, I mean, that was Saudi. I mean, again, I'm saying this because of the fact that I don't know all the ins and outs, follow the money and where the money comes from. But it was the Saudi, Invitational. They would go over there, and if I'm not mistaken, and this one again, like I said, correct me if I'm wrong here, but didn't years and years ago, even Tiger Woods take large appearance fees from the Saudis to play in some of their events? Wasn't it something like an $8 million payout to play in a Saudi event?
I believe it was that. I don't recall exactly if it was Dubai or Saudi or something. It was a tour that was overseas that compensated him nicely to show up.
Right.
But I don't want to speak without the facts there. So
exactly.
Right.
So that's what maybe you guys know. But what I'm saying is I think to a certain extent there's been a little bit of where it's been somewhat okay in the past. Now, also understand that the news and political landscape has changed, with the murder of that journalist that happened and things like that. So there's all that. But, it does make me wonder to a certain extent. I think regardless, though, the PGA Tour has not responded to this properly.
You think they gave him too much attention?
I think that they did.
Yeah.
I think that the PGA Tour came out really fast, guns blazing, And I think it actually,
Create
if anything,
like a revolt, like a,
yeah. And I think it did with the opposite effect of what they wanted. I think it gave LIV even more attention.
I agree with that.
I think other than the money, to start off, LIV was a lot of like, you hear like names like thrown around here, like the XFL. It was something, it felt a little bit more like that. But then as the PGA Tour like gave it more and more and more press with the way they responded.
Yeah, yeah. By the way, XFL, much better analogy than Canadian Football League. So that was spot on there. But I think you're right. I think they gave him way too much attention in the beginning. But let me ask you this then. Don't you think they had no choice? They had to have been running scared saying, if they don't do anything, then guys are just going to go there, play that, get the money, come back, play there, get the money, go back. It's just going to be a revolving door.
I
Should
get
they have
it.
left it like that?
I get it, but I guess the way that they're looking at it is, again, they PGA Tour has their stances that they take, and whether this is like a moral high ground or whatever it may be, I think it's because of where the money came from more than anything else. Because right now it's only 8 events. It's an alternate. It's like this week, it's going off against the John Deere, which is not. We'll talk about that later because we're going to do our own picks for it. There's a couple good players in there, but overall strength of field is not great.
It's not. It's
right?
not great.
So it's like, would it have been the worst thing in the world if some guys played that, and some guys played the LIV event and some guys played that? I don't know.
We could see LIV being strategic about their event placement. It's brilliant to do it this week,
For sure.
And then I'm sure the next one's going to be after the Open.
Yes.
Right. So, we have an event this week in Portland. It's LIV event number 2, the first one in the United States, and it has a whole bunch of new names.
It has a whole bunch of new. We're starting to see the names more and more, and I want to talk about that too, because you had a theory which I think is probably right, and I think that they're starting to realize that they may have a case against the PGA Tour that they can play, and the suspension won't last forever. But regardless, LIV still has one major problem, which we'll dig into, that's going to still hold people back from joining over there. But it's just, I don't know. I'm trying to think where I was going with that a second ago, as far as the tour itself, the way they should have responded. Hindsight's 20/20, but the tour really should have done something and started to make some changes years ago. If they had the foresight to get ahead of this many, many years ago, we wouldn't have this problem today. Yep. Don't forget, you got Greg Norman's been working on this for a long time.
Yes, he has.
There's been this set of players who want changes to the PGA Tour and didn't feel like they were happening, so wanted to launch their own tour eventually. I think if the PGA Tour had their ear to the ground a little bit more, saw some of the gripes the players are having and made some changes, and I don't think they had to be throwing money changes. I think it could have been just the way that they maybe loosened up some restrictions on players with content and licensing.
That was one.
I mean, we've had the ability to see a little bit of it firsthand in some of the content. We're content creators in the stuff we've tried to do around the PGA Tour, right?
It's not easy.
It's not easy.
Nope.
It's in fact, we had a much better time at the US Open working with the USGA, who I think more so understands that landscape of saying, like, the more eyeballs, the better. It's good for golf. It grows the game. They let us to do a lot more when it comes to on-site video, creating content, stuff like that. Contrast that with the PGA Tour. You go, forget it. The ability to, you're not filming anything on their grounds.
Not a single swing from a player. Anything.
Nothing. Yeah. And we're just thinking, like, we're not here to compete with the NBC broadcast. Like, I understand that's a big part of his broadcast rights. No one's going to, we're not competing. We're not broadcasting it, but allowing us to do stuff on site with players, do fun, engaging stuff, interviews, our 10-second interviews, things like that.
Yeah. Well,
what's wrong? Like, right. And even from a player's standpoint, the players are so locked down in what they can do. Think about the match, right? That Phil's been a big part of, and he has the match. That has nothing really to do with the PGA Tour, other than the fact that the players are on the PGA Tour. It's not held at a week that's a PGA Tour event. It's not held at a PGA Tour course. And yet they have to pay the PGA Tour $1 million in licensing every time they do one.
Just because they're in it?
It's in their contract. They're PGA Tour players. So they have to license, and we've seen so much of that. Even we had George Bryan from Bryan Brothers on the show, and his brother Wesley's on. And I know he's expressed some of his on his own channel, some of his own frustrations with even trying to film what Wesley does. He's a tour player, so here's guys who are on tour. They can't create their own content because it's so handcuffed. I think that's just one of the many kind of grievances that if the PGA Tour had saw that and kind of got ahead of it and started to let people do more of what they wanted to do, they might not have created their own kind of enemy in this.
I totally agree. And I just think that's one of the reasons why these guys jumped. You know, I mean, the guy like Brooks, I don't think he cares about the content. I think there are guys who are just genuinely upset with how the PGA Tour runs its operations. It's very same political,
right?
Just like
whatever
I'm
it
done
is.
with this. I don't understand this. These guys get me. Plus, financially, they're going to set me up. I can only play, 8 events a year. I don't have to do as much.
Right.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe they feel there's just too many rules on the PGA Tour. I don't know.
It's possible, but I think that's where like the PGA Tour, if they had a little bit more foresight, had seen this coming, they wouldn't have to act so reactionary. And I think that their reactions since have just not been a good look. Even this huge announcement of like this big money mini like series that they're going to be doing, right, for top players, clearly trying to lure some top players back with money. I think that put everyone in a bad position. I
think so too.
We have you look at like some of the comments in our Clubhouse, a lot of guys are saying, well, we're all questioning the Saudi money, but where did all of a sudden the PGA Tour come with huge deep pockets to throw 20 million more at people? And then they're like, well, that raises the question, were they holding that money back from players before?
Right.
And then you've got guys who've been the biggest champions of the PGA Tour, like Rory and JT, they're in this conundrum, be like, well, now we have to say we're not playing in that because we're saying we're not playing for the money.
We got to stick to our guns. And also the other line that he said, which I thought was interesting from Rory, is, he doesn't want to take the fall series off, hang out with his family, then come back to tour and find out that he's in 150th place on the FedEx Cup because he didn't participate in it.
Right.
So now he's at a disadvantage.
And these guys
working against him.
Exactly. And these guys, it's like they, as you said earlier, a lot of these guys want to play less. The PGA Tour season is already incredibly long.
Yeah,
right.
It's most of the year.
It's most
That's
of the year.
That's how I describe it.
If you put the fall series in, it's the whole year. They get maybe a couple weeks off in December.
A little bit in December.
Right. And then January kicks back up. So if you're going to put these big money, big whatever events that they have to play in the fall, these guys are playing golf with no break. Don't forget, they've got families. A lot of the guys who are going over to LIV are saying that. Be like, dude, I can play 8 events, make more money than I'll ever make on tour, and I'll be with my family.
Yeah.
That's another thing. But
that's true.
Some of these guys, it does seem a little bit like they're talking out both sides of their mouth. So one of the big ones last week was Koepka, right? Koepka's announcement.
Mm-hmm.
So this quote's been flying all over social media. This was his quote from 2020, which is why if you combine it with what he had said at the U.S. Open, where he was like, didn't want to talk about LIV, you think maybe he was not going. So Koepka said, money's not going to make me happy. I just want to play the game. I just want to play against the best. If someone handed me $200 million tomorrow, it's not going to change my life. What am I going to get out of it? I already have enough that I could retire right now, but I don't want to. I just want to play golf. That was February 2020.
So right before COVID.
February 2020, right before COVID, he says that. Now you could argue he's doing the exact opposite. He took about $150 million deal. He's going to be playing less golf, obviously. And it is life-changing money because Koepka, with his 4 majors, his 4 wins on tour, all that stuff, he's made approximately $40 million in earnings on the PGA Tour. Well, he just made 3 times that signing for LIV. And on top of that, he's going to make money in every single event where he appears.
Yeah. And it was easy for him to say that in 2020 because he was coming off a stellar year of 2 big wins. He had a WGC and a PGA championship. Then he goes on a drought for about he hasn't won since February 2021. So a year and a half. Almost.
Right.
So maybe he's saying it's getting tougher to win out here as well. A lot of guys are also playing that card. It's getting harder to win on the PGA Tour. I'd rather go to a field with 48 players, have a team, win some team money, win some individual money, get a big sign-on bonus. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
For them. That's what they might be thinking.
Speaking of which, one thing, I checked this in the box against LIV. Those team names are so lame.
Yeah.
It's like I don't know.
Like my kids' preschool when they have like Water Wars.
Right.
Like they just come with their names.
It's just like who came up with there were all the marketing dollars that they have. They came up with those names. I do like a little bit of a team aspect. I think that's cool. And I think what you're going to see now is like it could be a huge shakeup. Now you've got like Bryson, Brooks, Patrick Reed, you know, hero villains type of thing.
Yep.
Like imagine like a team named the Villains, and like they were all like those guys. Like that could really ham and lean into that. But going back to Koepka, I do think though, although he says there it's not money, but then money was it was a big money deal. It might be a little bit more than money too. Koepka's a guy who notoriously does not like all the media obligations. Right.
He
doesn't like to have to do that, which the PGA Tour has that as part of the things that they've got to do. I'm sure at these live events, which have a more relaxed atmosphere anyway, there'll probably be a lot less where he has to talk to the media. He probably loves that. On top of that, he's always been a guy who's basically said, you know, he just wants to play the big events. He doesn't care. Remember he said he doesn't even practice for PGA Tour events?
Right. He said it. He's very vocal. He's
I mean, he doesn't care is a big thing to say. I get it. You get what I'm saying. The sentiment is his words were he doesn't even practice for PGA Tour events.
It's just very chill vibe. He's the Larry David of the PGA Tour. He'll tell you how he feels, exactly what's on his mind. He won't hold back. And that's Brooks. I think he's always been like that. And then he had that one quote during the US Open that says, it's going to come across as people as that I'm arrogant, but I'm just confident. So this guy just rolls around thinking he's the best player, and he just doesn't need to warm up or practice. He just shows up and wins, but he hasn't done so in a year and a half.
He hasn't.
So maybe that changed things.
But look, at the end of the day, I mean, the guy, he's going to be now playing against a arguably much weaker field.
Yep.
They're still great players.
They're still great, but
it's going to be an arguably much weaker field, and you can go in. I mean, one thing it raises the question for me though is like, is there going to be an incentive, right? Like I get it. So like look at Schwartzel who won the last one. It's life-changing money in one win. It's $4.5 million, right? Great. That's a lot of money. It's also $120,000 for dead last. And that doesn't even count if your team made you some money too.
Right. Think about that.
Think about
no
that.
cut.
Right.
Shotgun start too, which is like you don't got to worry about tee time. Everyone shows up and goes out at the same time.
Right. And then you play 3 days instead of 4. So these guys are going to play, they're going to basically work for 3 days a week. They're going to make the bare minimum is $120,000 plus whatever they made for their signing bonus.
Right.
To me, it makes me wonder, like, is there that much of an incentive to really win? Like, are these guys just pure competitors? They want to win anyway?
That might be it. I mean, they all probably love to win. They all want to finish the round as the top guy. I mean, that's golf. It's what they grew up in, right? So I can't see the love for winning going away, but I think the passion for the grind to go out there and win is slowly fading.
But for me, and I said this before, the overall size of the purse is not what gets me to tune in. I think it's more the relativity to the guy. Like, do I care whether Brooks, who now has $150 million in his pocket, makes $4 million that week or one? No, I don't. No. I want to see the guy who's been grinding it out on the Korn Ferry Tour, has like doesn't have a dollar in his pocket, finally gets in the PGA Tour and is just grinding for a cut to make some money, and then maybe a Cinderella story he wins big. Like we were watching a huge Cinderella story this past weekend with our guy Rob Labritz on the Champions Tour. Here's a guy, the money he probably won for what he come in third.
Came in tied fourth. He made almost a little more than $250,000.
That's life-changing money for him.
Yep.
Here's a guy who was a club pro for 30 years.
$400,000 for the year so far.
That's life-changing money. And I'd rather see a guy win $400,000 and change his life. And clearly that is a person who is playing hard. Rob, you know, he still talks about 10-hour, 12-hour a day practice sessions, grinding. To me, as a viewer, I'm more excited to see that than I am excited to see a guy like Koepka. The bank account is busting at the seams and doesn't worry about practice, just shows up. You know, he's raw talent. He's great. He is what he, but it's not changing his life.
It's not. But I'm thinking about a guy in his 20s, just got married. You've got $200 million in the bank, and you could show up 8, 10, 12 times a year and perform, and then you just go on vacation, do whatever you want.
Right.
For some of these guys, it was probably a very easy decision for them.
For them. It's a personal decision. I'm not going to knock anyone's personal decision.
Of course.
I'm saying from this side of the fence. From the fan side,
none of that's going to...
One thing that hasn't changed with LIV that I think they've got to figure out a way, if they want to be successful long-term, they got to figure out a way to change this.
Formats?
It just seems like an exhibition match to me.
Yeah.
It's like, great, you know, watching The Match, you know?
Yeah.
It's fun. Phil playing for the big money and he stands on the money and whatever it may be. I'll grab a beer. I'll watch that. Yeah. But I am not sitting on the edge of my seat like I am for some major.
No, you're right.
At the end of the day, as of right now, and this is their, like I said, the big Achilles heel for LIV and this is something that if they can't change this, they're in trouble, is that these are just exhibition matches. They just last week, I think that one of their big plays was going to be to try to link up with the DP World Tour. And if you guys don't know how this works, basically world rankings, official world rankings, which are tied to the majors and things like that and getting in, you have to accrue points. And part of that, you have to accrue wins and performance on tours that are part of that.
Yes.
The PGA Tour, the DP World Tour, the Asian Tour, things like that. The DP World Tour just came out following the PGA Tour with banning, sanctions, fines. So I think the hope for LIV was to partner up with DP World Tour, let these guys be part of that tour, play a couple of events to keep their points up.
Their world rankings.
Because without those world rankings, you drop out of the FedEx Cup.
Yep.
I'm sorry, not the FedEx Cup. You drop out of the Ryder Cup.
Yes, those.
You drop out of all those things. So right now, again, from a fan's perspective, I'm looking at these like they're exhibition matches.
Yeah.
There's nothing behind them at the moment.
There isn't, and by the way,
other than the big payouts, they are going to have their own championship at the end of the year. LIV is going to have a huge, I think it's like a $50 million event.
Jeez, that's just how they're going to compete.
They're just going to
have their FedEx Cup.
But these other guys are going to have to look at this and say, like, okay, I'm going to start to fall out of the world rankings, which, by the way, is probably a sigh of relief for the majors, because the majors are now realizing that maybe they don't have to take a stand. Maybe the U.S. The U.S. Open, they had everybody in, but it was because it happened quickly. But the president of the USGA already said that it was on the table to possibly not allow them to compete in the next one.
Yeah,
right. But these guys might not have to take a stand if nobody on LIV is accruing any points and they all start to fall off the official world golf rankings. They're not going to be qualified for majors.
That's right. That year, I know, and I'm curious to see how that's going to shake out.
Right.
Now, we were talking before the other day, I was saying, well, what is LIV's mission? Like, what are they doing this for? Are they do they have sponsors? How do they make money?
Because I'm looking at this, right?
I don't
From
get
the
it.
pure standpoint, right? There's, unlike the PGA Tour, there's not, like the last week we had the Travelers.
Yeah, there's a title sponsor.
The title sponsor. There's none of that.
Right.
There's no advertisements anywhere except LIV.
Right.
And it's up, I'm going to say it's almost hard to actually find it to watch.
Right.
It's either on YouTube or the website.
So let's get into the numbers, because the final round of London was 801,000 views. We could see it right here.
That we see on YouTube. We don't know the views on the website, but I would imagine they're less than YouTube.
Right. So I think the final round of the RBC, where Rory and JT went heads up, and for a good reason, they got 2.7 million views.
Yeah.
But here's the switch. This week, I think we're going to see a flip flop. I don't think anyone's tuning in.
Right.
I don't think anyone's tuning in to John Deere. There isn't any big names in the field. We're going to talk about it in a sec. But there isn't huge names like Rory, JT charging down Sunday, going heads up against each other, because that's going to get views no matter what.
Right.
And I think a lot of people are going to now tune in to see, now let's look at the new guys like Brooks, Bryson, Abraham Answer. Matt Wolff was a trending story today. I think you're going to see more eyeballs on the LIV this week.
I think you will too. But it is arguably a little bit, from a traditional standpoint, harder to watch, because now you're going over to YouTube and something like that. And I'm thinking even some of the older demographic who watches golf, I'm literally thinking of somebody like my father, right?
Yes.
He's going to be calling me like, how do I watch this thing?
Right.
Because he'll hear about his buddies are talking about it. It's not like you can pop on the television. And as part of that, 800, let's say it's 1 million views you get on YouTube. Maybe in AdSense revenue, maybe that makes you $100,000.
Right.
Right. It's not like what they sell broadcast rights and the amount of. So going back to what you're saying, like, what is the long-term revenue here? Because right now it's all money going out, and it's money going out. I think that what they said is that it's something like $2 billion this year. So if you think about between paying all these players huge contracts, between setting up all of these events, all the logistics around them, it's going to cost the backers of LIV about $2 billion this year, of which they're not going to really return anything. Now, you makes you wonder, is it that the pockets are just so deep? Who cares? They don't get, like, this is just their toy to play with.
Yeah.
Or is there a long-term goal to right now lay out all the money up front, grow this thing, and once it becomes big, start to get broadcast rights, start to get sponsorships?
That definitely could be the plan. I mean, now if there was another channel on TV that just showed LIV and covered LIV, then the PGA Tour would
The
have a big
problem that they have, though, is that at the end of the day, they've got to find a way to figure out the messaging or what they're going to do with the backing and the Saudi money, because it's not just players who are under fire here in the heat. There's a lot of brands and a lot of sponsorships that are just, they don't want the boycotts, any of the issue. They're saying as far away from it as possible, because they're like, as long as you're tied to that, I don't want anything to do with it.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, look what we're seeing with Russia over the last 6 months and all the companies pulling out of there.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so you could have that similar effect here for sure. And again, I'm just scratching my head of how do they plan to make money? Or funny enough, do they even care to make money?
Do they care?
Do they care?
Or if they care, where is it in their plan? Is it in their 5-year plan? We'll make money 5 years from now.
Right.
For now, we'll just spend until we get. We're gonna push this thing out into, with as much money as possible. But I think that the only way this could have ever happened was with the right amount of money, because you need a lot of money to entice players to take this risk. At the end of the day, it's a huge risk. It's a risk that you're not going to play in majors. It's a risk that you might not be in the Hall of Fame. It's a risk, all those types of things. You needed big money. And I think that's why a guy like Norman, who wanted to do this for many years, just ended up making this deal with the Saudis. And it's been both his biggest setback and also his biggest driver.
Yeah, for sure.
How
much did he get paid for it? Do we know?
Who knows?
I got to think he got
some
the
of the
most,
money that was thrown around
just to be the head of this and to basically
he's the one who had to
throw
take all the heat, or most of the heat.
Yeah, I'm curious to find out how much Norman made.
But now, then the big other, I feel like every day is more news that comes out about this. Some of the other big news is it's not just chasing the big names. Now we're seeing some of the biggest amateur names going over to LIV, which is very interesting. So you had the current, U.S. amateur champion and the second highest ranked amateur in the world right now, both committing to LIV this week, right? This is interesting. You got guys coming out of college and they're just foregoing the PGA Tour. It's not like anymore where it's like, okay, this is just guys who can't hack it on the PGA Tour. This is their victory lap.
Right.
This is whatever.
Right.
It's not. Now they're going for that young talent too. Because that was the other thing that was for me. I'll be straight with you. I didn't watch much of the first event.
Same. I checked it out a little bit.
Yeah, and at that point, the field wasn't super strong. DJ's not playing his hottest. Guys like Schwartzel, great, but at this point,
they got me with the tagline, golf but louder. I didn't see it to be any loud. I know they have rock concerts afterwards every night. But there wasn't anything loud about it. No one cheering as they're teeing off like Ryder Cup. I didn't see alt shot, worst ball, best ball. Give me something.
All that different. I mean, with the broadcast, I just saw them talking a lot about the purse.
That's it.
One thing that I have heard is different, and this is something that the PGA Tour can maybe take a play out of this book. Although I always have a lot of fun at PGA Tour events. I always think they're enjoyable. The fan experience at LIV is hard to beat.
Yes, they really went all out for that.
They go all out. There's the way it's set up and stuff like that. But also, you think about a PGA Tour event with the way tee times work. You're there all day. You're there 10-hour, 12-hour day, right? Here, it's a little bit more structured in that it's, first of all, it's 3 days, 54 holes, but everybody goes off on a shotgun start. So the event is over in about 3 hours, and then after that, they have a concert.
Yeah.
And other things. So it kind of it's a little bit more of almost like a cultural event. It's something that I could see more non-golfers going to. I could see myself bringing my wife to something like that who doesn't watch golf and be like, hey, listen, we'll watch golf for a couple hours, and then there's the concert you want to see is right after it.
And you know what that also reminds me of? I don't know if you're familiar with, in this area about, 15 years ago, right here in Rockland County, New York, they built a baseball stadium for the Rockland Boulders. And people bring their kids there, and I saw a commercial for it last night, and they've got mini golf in the outfield behind the thing. They've got a park for the kids. It's just all this other things. Oh, but there's a baseball game going on.
And then they have a concert or fireworks
at night, and no one watches the baseball. They just go to the...
Well, that's what I mean. Some fan experience there, but as a TV fan experience so far, I haven't felt it. It felt like an exhibition match with a lot of golfers that... You know,
there's far better things on YouTube I'd watch in golf, like our stuff.
Exactly. I mean, it just wasn't my thing. But we'll see if that changes this week. First of all, it's the first time in the States. That's going to change something. And then we're going to, as far as time and the time it goes off, there's no time change for us here. But going back to those amateurs, I'm just thinking about these guys. You take a guy, even if you're the best amateur, right? You come on the PGA Tour, You're going to grind it out. You're going to hopefully make a couple cuts. Maybe you make in your first year, if you make $1 million, great year.
Yeah.
You know, unless you're an all-star that comes out of left field and just takes the tour by storm, most of these guys are going to win that. Conversely, you get a guy who is already like immediately set for life with whatever bonus they got. Maybe even if you got $20 million bonus.
Yeah.
Right? That's more than some guys have ever won on tour already. And then every week, you come in last place every week, you're making $120,000. And then whatever else your team makes. For an amateur, you got to be like, wow, it's basically guaranteed. But again, it keeps coming back to that same circular argument of like, what's the competition at that point? Is it just for, whatever, for fun? But these guys have to make that decision. Like, if you're coming out as an amateur, how much do you value legacy in the PGA Tour? Because we keep hearing that legacy. It's a tough one.
How many events do they play? 8 in the States?
8 right now. The 8 total events this year.
That's it.
For LIV. And then I think it's expanding to like 10 or 12 and then up to 14. So it's going to grow. It's going to grow over time.
So if you play in all and you come in last place in every single one, you're going to make $1.4 million.
Right. Versus imagine what you would have,
if you missed every cut, you're in the negative because you're probably paying for your travel and
exactly
all that stuff. So yeah,
I'm trying to bring up here. I wanted to see some of your comments, everybody's comments from the Clubhouse, because we had a good conversation going there. And one thing that I will say, and I seriously commend our Clubhouse members on this, is that it's such a great group in there that everyone expressed their opinion. Some people say, I'm all PGA Tour. I don't even watch LIV. Other people saying, I enjoy it. Whatever. Whatever it was, super civil. Didn't turn into like fighting or political and all that type of stuff. So I commend everybody on that. If you're not already part of the group, make sure to golficity.com/clubhouse. In fact, let's do this. Let's do a quick word from our sponsors. Then we'll come back. We'll read some of those comments, and then we'll dive into some other stuff that we have this week. We are going to talk about the PGA Tour still.
Yes, we are.
Okay,
we're going to talk about our guy Xander too.
We got to talk about
We had some fun with him.
A lot of stuff. So let's take a quick break. We'll talk about a word from our sponsors, and we'll jump into that.
All right, this podcast is sponsored by Gosling's Rum, the creator of the Dark and Stormy. It's perfect, Frank. It's dark and stormy out there today. I'm glad we're not on the golf course. So we're in here. So maybe we'll fire up some Dark and Stormies this afternoon. It's the official cocktail of the 19th hole, guys. And if you missed it a couple episodes ago, we physically made one here on the show with Malcolm Gosling Jr. The cool thing about this, it's an easy recipe. It's their dark rum with their ginger beer, some ice cubes, and a lime. It's amazing. It's a little dangerous, but delicious. Get the prepaid Dark and Stormies, which I love. They come in a can, so you don't have to mess around. Throw them in the cooler. Bring them to the beach this summer. And what's cool about Gosling's, they also have a cool merch shop. They're getting into golf, so they're doing some golf-themed stuff in their merch shop. You could check that out at darkandstormy.com. And here's the last bit I'm going to give you. I'm going to give you guys a $15. That's right, $15 off your order at Gosling's Rum. You can get the rum, the beer, the cans. Just use the code Golficity, GOLFICITY. The offer's valid through August 31st. So for the rest of the summer, essentially, we're going to hook you up with $15 off your purchase, and they'll ship it right to your door. Yes, alcohol to your door. 21 or older. Drink responsibly. Check them out, Gosling's Rum.
And guys, we also want to thank Titleist. We all have different ability levels and goals, but one thing we share is the desire to bring our best every single time that we tee it up. And the Pro V1 is the best combination of speed, spin, and feel in the game. And the X gives you a higher flight and a firmer feel, but both deliver that long distance, consistent flight, soft feel, and that all important drop and stop greenside control. You and I, we actually, it was great being back at the Travelers just this last week. We got back to the site of our very first ball fitting, and I'll never forget how eye-opening it was, understanding how the ball fits the golfer. And you fit into the X, I fit into the V, and just seeing that trajectory and how it helps you hold those greens with the land angle. But again, knowing, and as we learn this game more and more, and we play this game more and more, knowing around those greens, having a ball that you can trust to perform the way you want it to perform consistently is truly a game changer. So whether you're Justin Thomas, Jordan Spieth, or Nelly Korda competing at the game's highest levels, or simply striving to be the best you can be, tee up a Pro V1 or Pro V1X and always bring your best.
Yeah, and lastly, want to thank Precision Pro. Have you guys checked out the new Nx10 Rangefinder yet? I mean, if you have not, go check it out. Visit their website. They've upgraded internals to make it lightning quick on target lock. It's the fastest rangefinder I've ever used. You hit the button, bzz, you got your number. It's got this improved HD optics and this new LCD display. It has an increased strength of that magnetic cart mount, so you know if you hit a bump on the cart, you're not going to lose this thing. It's not going to fall off. And what the biggest feature that I love is the personalization, those personalized interchangeable plates that just clip on and clip off. They have an ever-growing collection of plates. They're going to be releasing new designs consistently, so you got to check it out. They've got like American flag, and they've got all these unique things. They've got some of your favorite content creators out there that you might watch on YouTube, and we might have ours coming soon with Golficity logo, so you guys are going to love to see that. We're working with the team now, and you can mix and match these things. If you're going on a trip with your buddies and you want something to match your outfits, I don't know how crazy you get out there with that stuff, but that would be for you. So check out Precision Pro. They've got the best care package in the game. They offer free lifetime battery replacements, 2-year warranty on the rangefinders, 90-day return policy, and some of the best customer service in the industry, and lets them sprinkle on that free shipping. I don't know how you can go wrong with all of that. Use the promo code Golficity at checkout. Get this $20 off the purchase of the Nx10.
All right, guys, so let's get back to this and let's talk about even some of your comments. So I had posted something in the Golficity Clubhouse, which is our private messaging forum, and I said, guys, just let us know. I'm just curious. Who's watching Live? Who's not? What do you think? What's your thoughts? And some of you guys had just terrific thoughts, so I'll share a couple of them here. Gary Ganji says, my thoughts with the exception of Answer and maybe Bryson, I don't think the PGA is losing much. Most of the guys are later in their careers. It makes sense to take the payouts, and all of them seem to be struggling to make cuts. I think it would, however, be an issue if they get world ranking points. It would be a game changer. I don't expect that to happen, though. And he's right. It would be a game changer. But right now, the tides are going the other direction with the DP World Tour just announcing that they're not.
Well, I'd sprinkle in Carlos Ortiz and Matt Wolff, new names, young blood.
I think that's the other side of this. Is like this is an evolving landscape. That was a couple of days ago that we posted this, and since then, Matthew Wolff. But it is true, like you said earlier. I haven't seen anybody who just won on tour going over there. It seems like a lot of the guys, it's been a bit.
Yep.
So that's part of it. And Pete McCann says, I have an interest in LIV in a rubbernecking, can't look away from a car crash sort of way. I think the whole situation is more like a reality show. I look forward to any documentary about this period. So he kind of dived in that. He said, I watched the first 30 minutes of the first tournament out of curiosity and turned it off. It seemed like a lot of rich people just wanting to get more rich with less effort.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying is that reading between the lines, it just feels a little bit like an exhibition right now. And just knowing that no matter what, you're walking away with 6 figures that day, no matter how you play. That's a tough one for me too.
I like his rubbernecking. It's almost like my wife watches The Bachelor and Bachelorette, but then they come out with this new like couples retreat one, like with your ex comes to an island, like a new spin-off style show. And like you can't look away. I gotta watch this one.
You gotta watch
this one now.
And I think as hardcore golf fans, we all kind of want to see, and there's a curiosity aspect of it. But the question, they have to turn that corner. Liv has to have that entertainment part,
of course.
Duke Knur, why do I always say Duke's last name wrong? Duke Knur, he says, Mr. Short Game posted a video, his video brought up some very interesting views. He said, but I thought the same thing about the PGA Tour and where the millions of dollars just came from in the last few days. Does the PGA Tour have a huge slush fund? And it's true, like it was kind of a weird look to all of a sudden throw this big money series. It's like, well, where was that money before, and why was the players not getting paid out? And then you have like just some people who are just completely on that side of the fence, like Wendell Laughing. He says, I have no interest in Liv. I'm a PGA Tour fan, plain simple. So it really kind of goes back and forth. And I'm just kind of seeing both sides of it. But
I wonder if the PGA Tour has like they went out and fetched a new sponsor for this new fall series, and it's just going to be like the fall series presented by Nationwide or something, and they gave them 160 million, 20 million for 8 events. I don't know. But then again, I'm sure the PGA Tour does have a pile of cash as well.
Yeah.
Like most companies.
And a lot of people in here started to bring up, and the conversation, was, like I said, it was really good. It was a lot of thoughtful stuff in here, but a lot of people were saying like, it's kind of like baseball and the salary cap and like throwing a lot of money around. But now, like I said, seeing, and Eric says, kind of what we were saying is like, he thinks that the PGA Tour fumbled its response. And in a lot of ways it did. I think they should have seen this coming. You've had talks with like Greg Norman for years that he wanted to do this. So a little bit of more foresight would have made this a lot better as far as that goes. But again, now you're going to start to see some of these younger guys out there, some of the top amateurs going and playing over there. It just remains to be seen whether this is like going to be actual competition that we want to see. But again, I think that the hugest thing, the next thing you're going to see in the news is, and the hardest thing that that LIV is going to be pushing for is they've got to find some way to work their way into those rankings. Or when you start to see all of a sudden Dustin Johnson is now, or let's say Koepka, because I think he's like 17th in the world right now. Mm-hmm. If by the end of 2022, Koepka is now 300th in the world, because he hasn't competed in any events that are points events. Mm-hmm. What does that mean for some of these guys? And now Koepka, can't make it. He's gonna have other exemptions from like winning, some of these events that'll hold over. Yep. But it'll start to fall off, and then all of a sudden you start to see these guys can't play in majors.
It's gonna be weird not seeing guys in Ryder Cup like Westwood, Poulter, Dustin Johnson, Phil Mickel. It's just going to be weird not seeing them there.
I'll tell you one thing, though, that put me off a bit was Dustin Johnson's comments, and I get it. Even as a father, I get it, of saying, like, I would like to be on the road less, be with my family more. He just got married, all that type of stuff. But when he said in his press conference, I want to play less golf, not more. Mm-hmm. I don't like. I'm not a fan of that. I want the guys who want to play golf. Like, that's where I think
should have phrased it better.
Yeah, because it's like, I get it. He could have phrased it of saying like, I love
to be on the road a little less. I want to be with the family more.
But saying like you want to play less golf, to me, that's just not the messaging that we want people hearing if we're going to be growing the game. True. You want to play less.
True enough.
So it could have been just phrasing, maybe. DJ is always welcome on the podcast if he wants to clarify that.
For sure.
But let's switch it up here. Let's
speaking
talk about
of podcast and clarifying, let's talk about Xander.
Yeah.
All right. Now, I don't know how long you guys have been listening to the show, but if any of you longtime listeners of the show and watching the YouTube channel, it goes back to my Molinari days when I played in the Pro-Am with Francesco, met him for the first time. Then he went on to go on a complete tear. And when I saw him again at Ridgewood, he told me I gave him the juice. Yeah. We got that on video. He said, "You gave me the juice," meaning me being in his presence offered him some good vibes. And you know what? I think the same thing happened to Xander. So to recap real quick, we met Xander. We did our first ever 10-second interview, which we love doing. It kind of just came out of nowhere because we went into Brookline at the U.S. Open prepared that if we were going to get an opportunity to speak to any of these players, we know it was going to be short-lived because they're dialed in.
It's also partly a response to what the vibe was. And speaking about LIV again, we heard it. We were on the range all day that day. All of them talking to each other and be like, "Oh, I can't answer another question about LIV." All these guys have so much interview fatigue right now because it's just constant.
So we want to be refreshing.
Let's be refreshing. Let's interview them for 10 seconds.
Right. So we saw Xander at the Brookline. We did a quick one. And then at the Travelers, like you said, we saw him again. And I went right up and said, hey, Xander, can I get another 10-second interview? And he says, "Well, I didn't do one today." And I'm like, well, just to recap, we did one together at Brookline. And I think he kind of got it. We did a quick one. It was funny. It was 2 questions, nothing about LIV. It was just about the week. I asked him if he had any 59s in him this week. I asked him how the course was playing. He was honest. He said, I don't know. I just got here.
Yeah, but the 59 question ended up being very
darn close. He shot 263s.
Yes.
So he was close. And then he goes on and wins.
He had some week.
Clear winner and took him in DraftKings, man, in the sportsbook. Bet $3 on him.
There you go.
And I won $57 on that bet. How cool is that?
That is really cool. I want to tell you another cool DraftKings story in a second. We're going to do our picks this week. We're going to talk about the John Deere. But guys, if you don't know already, we're partnering with DraftKings Sportsbook to give all new customers a risk-free bet up to $1,000 if your first bet loses. So basically, you almost have nothing to lose here.
Right.
So you're going to use code Golficity at sign up DraftKings Sportsbook. If your first bet loses, you get one risk-free bet up to $1,000. And this week, try it for the John Deere. Get your feet wet before golf's next big major.
I got a nice pick for this week. So
I got a pick for this week. Okay. I got a pick for the Open, too. I took one ahead of that. I'll tell you my wife's story in a second. But here's what you do. Head over to DraftKings Sportsbook app right now. Check out all they have to offer, including same-game parlays, player props, live betting, and so much more. DraftKings Sportsbook, one of America's top-rated sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and reliable. You can deposit and withdraw your money at your convenience. And by the way, if Sportsbook for any reason is not available in your state, don't forget to check out the DraftKings Fantasy app. They're offering millions of dollars in total prizes every week. And we've been doing DraftKings Fantasy forever.
Right. So now you're doing both.
Now you're doing both.
Yeah.
And now it's available in our states, New York, New Jersey, where we are, and a lot more other ones. So download and sign up for DraftKings Sportsbook to get in on all of the exciting action and for a shot at winning cash. Again, new customers will receive a free bet up to $1,000 in free bets if their first bet loses. Sign up using that promo code Golficity, GOLFICITY. Remember, a lot of people typo golf or City. You get that autocorrect Golf City. Right. Don't forget your I. GOLFICITY to get the offer. Start seeing all the great ways DraftKings brings you closer to your favorite sports. And I'll tell you the story real quick.
Let's hear it.
Last week, so I signed my wife up for DraftKings. The deal's just too good. You can't.
Yeah, she got the free picks for the
Open. Got the free picks,
Open,
right? So I punch in the Golficity code. I get her the thing. She doesn't watch golf. She knows nothing about it. But for something with my wife, she is just like Rain Man with picking. Every year, people hate it when we go to the Super Bowl parties and they have a pool. I don't know how. She picks the squares. She wins every year.
Right. That's her
thing. It's like this crazy streak. So she's like, well, I don't know. You tell me who to pick. I'm like, no. Yeah. I'm like, I want you just to look at this list of names and just pick some people.
Right.
Right. She picks Fitzpatrick.
Love it. How much? $25?
She puts the $25 free bet that we got with Golficity. Puts a $25 bet on it. She wins $300.
That's awesome.
And now she's loving it
because she cashed it out. Couch. Right.
Yeah. I'm like, you may not care about golf, but there's your purse you've been wanting to buy or whatever, right?
Right.
So she cashed that out, but she still got some money in there.
Yeah.
Right? Because she got other free bets. So she's sitting there on the couch. She's like, who should I take this week?
Yeah.
Now she's excited about it.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's one thing I do like. Like you kind of adds that little bit of extra excitement. But who is your pick this week? Who you got?
Okay, so this week for the John Deere, I'm going to run with Charles Howell III. Chucky triple sticks right there. I like him to win outright winner. He was promising. He's 25-1 currently.
Yep.
So, a $10 bet will equal $250. He played pretty promising on Thursday and Friday. He fell off a little bit on the weekend. I was kind of upset to see that. But, hey, he shot a 64-68 in the first two rounds. And this is the type of field that I could see a guy like Charles Howell really making a run.
I could see that too. And it's one thing we will say, we talked about this earlier, the strength of field is not terrific.
Nope.
Right now, and don't forget, guys, all these right now as we're recording, all these odds are subject to change. They can change, by the minute. So we're just giving you what we have right now. Daniel Berger is the is kind of leading that. And
he's the clear favorite.
He's got the chance.
Yeah, haven't seen much of him lately, but he's got the chance.
He no doubt does. But you know who I got my eye on? Scott Stallings.
Yeah.
Another guy we've had here on the podcast and a guy we watched closely, at the US Open and we saw him at the Travelers last week. I just, when you feel like you're getting ahead of a guy who can A, get hot at the right moment, but B, with a field that's a little bit more, friendly as far as competition wise. I think it's a guy you got to take a look at.
I love the pick. He had a tough first day, and he even said it. He vocalized it on Instagram. He shot a 74 in round one, but then he went 64, 68, 63 with the whole don't give up mentality. Finished T8.
Yeah.
You love it. Top 10 finish for him.
I think he's a great pick. And then looking out a little bit further, longer term.
Open.
We'll talk about it as we get closer, but the Open Championship.
Who are you eyeing, right?
I know he's one of the favorites, but I'm put some money. I did the other week. I put some money on Rahm.
Okay.
I think John Rahm is the type of guy that, again, where you're going to have a little bit the old course, the link style, I don't know. Bring some of that that Seve love into it, that Spanish
I could see that
blood out there. I don't know, but also the way he just seems to rise to the occasion in majors. We saw it at the US Open. Rahm is a guy who could just win at any time.
Yeah, it's.
I think it'd be foolish to not throw a couple bucks on it.
I think it's foolish, and I think your top five guys in the majors you got to look at now are always going to be Rahm, Zalatoris, Rory, JT, and Scheffler. You got to
it gets to a point if you don't put a couple bucks on Zalatoris for a top five, then what's the point?
Exactly, but we got a course like St. Andrews. Matthew Fitzpatrick growing up in the UK. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if you win back-to-back majors. It's very hard to do, but the dude is crushing the ball past some of the biggest hitters in the game.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I'm not even worried about him crushing it so much as the way his putting was.
Yeah.
And because two things that we're going to see at, St. Andrews. One, those greens, the TV will never do them justice. Would never have believed it till we got out there and played there. The undulations in those greens are like nothing you've ever seen before.
They're big,
the
man.
flat stick has to be hot. But the other thing, Tiger won there with one huge thing that he had in mind, was to stay out of the sand. And Tiger for 4 straight days missed every bunker out there. Because those bunkers are the other things that will take you from a par to a double bogey and take you out of contention faster than you can.
Those bunkers murdered us. And
Tiger stayed, like, if you, a guy who has smart positional play and can putt, is gonna be somebody who wins the Open.
Yeah, and it's, you know what's funny? I've been seeing a lot of interviews. I heard Xander last, like, post-round interview. They asked him about St. Andrews in the Open, and he's another guy who's never been there, never played. And I've noticed that a lot of guys, like, out there, it's still on their, it's like a bucket list course for a lot of these tour pros.
Yeah.
You and I are fortunate enough to play it, and, like, it still, like, blows my mind that some of these guys on tour have never even stepped foot on it.
Yeah.
It's cool.
There's no doubt that, so again, kind of going back to the whole LIV thing, there's no doubt that this is going to be an event that's going to be electric.
Yeah.
You know, you've got the Open Championship back at the old course. I mean, I don't care what they're playing for at that point, purse-wise.
Right. That'll be one of the most watched events of the year.
Yeah.
Hands down. I think it's going to be bigger than Brookline. I think now you got Tiger coming. There's no question that, you know, the Open is going to be a pretty widely watched event.
How much, I mean, I know it's not a PGA Tour event, but how much do you think now the Tour is just hoping Tiger gets back playing? Because I think that's going to be one of their biggest pulls.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, if you go head to head, one event versus the other, whichever event has Tiger in it is going to be the one that wins on ratings that week. That's the reality.
Tiger more than ever now.
They need Tiger more than ever. But yeah, so it's, otherwise, you know, it'll be interesting flipping back and forth and trying to get a vibe of how that flow is going to look, watching the John Deere and watching the LIV event in Portland. I do want to catch a little bit of both of them. I don't know.
Yeah,
we'll have to continue to provide updates on that. But let's do one more quick ad break, and then I want to talk about our own experience where we did our reverse mulligan challenge.
What a wild video we shot.
I think this one we're going to have to do again. But let's do another quick break, and then we'll hop back into that.
Yep.
Guys, the Tour Alpha from FootJoy leads the pack in the most tech-focused, crazy comfortable, win-ready shoe in golf. The Tour Alpha is power reimagined, and it sets the standard of ability and comfort for today's athletes who demand the most secure foundation to maximize their power. And that's one thing that's hugely changed for us recently, is starting to look at shoes not only from that style standpoint, from that performance standpoint. And for those days where whatever the conditions, or I just need that, make sure that I've got that extra footing, the Tour Alpha has been my go-to. I love it in the laced. I love it in the BOA. It features that OPS system, which is that providing that ultimate support and control throughout the golf swing. And like I said, whether it goes BOA, laced, it's an unbelievably good looking shoe, and it just screams performance, everything part about it. So if you are super performance focused, you're looking for that shoe that's going to really help in supporting that, using your ground forces, things like that. You got to give a look to the Tour Alpha. It's the shoe. It's all about power and performance. You can learn more about the Tour Alpha by visiting footjoy.com.
Hey guys, lately a lot of people have been messaging, asking about mobile launch monitors. It's something that a lot of us amateurs are starting to really, you know, agree with and identify as being a true training aid. You know, when we go to a driving range, just to have more of a powerful, you know, practice session, something with a little more purpose where we can get numbers. Because before these things, before they were affordable, we were just whacking balls at the range. And the only thing we're getting at is if we hit a good shot, it felt good. Yeah. But we weren't having any metrics. We weren't having the stuff that we needed. And Rapsodo has arguably the most affordable and easiest to use mobile launch monitor on the planet. It clips in my bag. It's the size of a rangefinder. And wait till I tell you the price. You're going to be like, wow, that's even about the price of a rangefinder. But here's what it offers: distance, ball speed, club speed, launch angle. That's just to name a few. They've got great visualization in the app. It shows you the tracer of the shot. Everything is right there. But I love they have this shot dispersion feature. It's just one of the various insights that it offers, color-coded for each club with pinpoint distance and accuracy. You can optimize your club gapping. You could dial in those wedges. If you're struggling with a certain yardage, you got a 130 club and a 110 club, but you got nothing in between, this can maybe help you with your focused practice to get that 120 club 120 shot, or that 120 shot in your bag. I use it indoors. I use it outdoors. It's great for the wintertime in the garage. I throw up a net. You know, you can use it anywhere. It's extremely portable. And again, here's the price. You ready? It's $4.99, but with our code Golficity, GOLFICITY MLM. That's Golficity MLM. Use that in one word at checkout, and you're going to get $100 off. It's ridiculous. So you're going to get this mobile launch monitor for $399. Check out any of our videos where we tested it if you want a little more in-depth, but you guys will love it. Go to rapsodogolf.com, check it out, and don't forget that code Golficity MLM.
Use that code no matter what, because it'll always give you the best price. In fact, during the U.S. Open, they dropped that price down to $399 for everyone.
Because of the Father's Day deal.
Because of the Father's Day deal. But on top of that, then they kicked in the subscription for premium, which is usually $100 with the Golficity MLM coupon. You got that for free.
Yes.
So no matter when you're listening to this show, use that coupon. You're always going to get the best deal. All right, let's get back into it. Let's talk a little about that reverse mulligan challenge. All right, so recently we played one of our wildest kind of on-course challenges ever. And we always like these challenges because not only are they fun and entertaining, but I find that they kind of help you play the game in a different way, maybe learn a little bit of something about yourself. I know when we were out there, you were learning about how it caused you to focus more on the putts.
Right.
But make a long story short, we had seen this going around on social, this idea of a reverse mulligan. I don't even remember who first posted it because we just saw it immediately. It was everywhere. It caught fire. But the idea is basically, as you're playing your round, you can use a mulligan at any time. However, if you use a mulligan, your opponent gets a reverse mulligan, meaning if you hit a great shot, they can call reverse mulligan on you and it comes back and you've got to hit it again. So we had a lot of fun with this one. I won't tell you who won. You're going to have to tune in and watch the videos on the Golficity main channel. They are out there. We had a lot of fun. In fact, we played a really great course too, which I never knew existed. St. Andrews Golf Club right in Westchester.
Yeah.
St. Andrews, you know.
St. Andrews, I know.
And the place has a ton of history. It's kind of hidden in plain sight. I've driven past it a million times in Westchester. Never knew it was there. Private club. They let us come out there and play, which thank you to the team for letting us out there. Beautiful golf course, very difficult, but this reverse mulligan was wild.
It really, really was. I didn't know what to expect. We had fun with it. There were some pretty insane shots. You had one recovery shot, which was like tore caliber under a tree, kept it low, got it up to the green. I made you hit it again.
Yeah.
You know, I dropped the birdie putt. And again, I'm not going to tell you what hole all this happened, but I dropped the birdie putt. Frank made me do it again. And I nailed it again.
Yeah.
So, you know, it was great. It came down to the end for the most part. And I would totally do this challenge again.
It was fun. And you got to be okay with a little fun competition and ribbing if you're going to do this one, because it's difficult when you hit a great shot and your partner makes you hit it again.
Yeah. I mean, you just
got to
know.
go pick it up.
You know, at that point, once you hit it, I was like, there was a lot of times where I hit a good shot and I look back and you go, all right, am I taking the other ball out?
But that's the other thing, that it became such a strategy play that sometimes you're just so nervous. Like, is he going to reverse this on me? Is he going to reverse this on me?
Right.
So it was a fun challenge. And if you guys enjoy it, drop a comment on that video. Let us know if you want to see it again, because we got a lot of great golf coming up and we can put that in and play a little reverse mulligans again. But speaking of great golf coming up, we're going to be back at Sleepy Hollow. We're going to be back at Pound Ridge. We've
July
got a
is
lot
packed.
of fun stuff.
August is really packed.
Whistling Straits,
San Diego. We got some things coming. We got to do some travel, but for great content reasons. So if you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel, go and subscribe, because let's just say what we have going on in San Diego is like golfer's paradise. Yeah. We're not going to tell you that, but let's just say we're getting access to some places that don't normally offer access.
Yeah. Yeah, this one's going to be a good one. And stay tuned for the podcast too, because we talked so much about LIV today. We're going to have somebody on the show who can speak a lot firsthand of it. We're going to have Travis from PGA Memes on the show, who not only I want to hear his story and dig in on how he created what is definitely the most successful memes, account on Instagram.
Yeah.
The thing's coming up on 1 million followers. We all get a great laugh out of it. But also some of the great stuff he's doing, the home course he's doing where he's touring some of these players' homes. It's just an incredible series he's got going on YouTube. But he's also gotten a lot of access with LIV. He was there at that first event. He did on his YouTube channel a walkthrough of what it's like, the fan experience. So he's somebody who's lived it firsthand. So it'll be cool to talk to him and find out. And he's also had a lot of access with Greg Norman. I think he toured
his house.
Yeah.
And he's done a lot of great charitable stuff for Jack Nicklaus Foundation through his PGA Memes Challenge, which we played in.
Yes.
We videoed that whole thing. That was a great experience. So the dude stays busy.
He does.
And he puts out some great stuff, and he also gives back. So.
Yeah, so stay tuned for that because we will have him on the podcast. We're going to talk about that. But before we leave you guys, what I will say is I encourage you to leave your comments below. And like I said, if there's one thing I ask, let's keep it as civil as possible. I understand that this can get political, but as I said before, we just personally are not big into politics. I'm more so interested in hearing it from a fan's perspective. And by all means, though, share it. If as a fan, the fact where the money comes from makes it unwatchable for you, then I want to know that.
Right.
Fine. But whatever it is it the structure? What do you like? What do you not like? Where do you think LIV is headed? What do you think their long-term, all the stuff we talked about today, what do you think their long-term game plan is?
Yeah, I'm curious.
Is this going to be something we start to see sponsors in the mix and starts to make some of that revenue back? Or is this just money going out the door? Who knows? And but most importantly, as a person who's a fan of golf, does this intrigue you? Does the competition, you think the competition is strong enough? Are the names strong enough to get you to tune in? What do you think? And what do you think of the PGA Tour's response? I know there's a lot there, but that's why we talked about it earlier. And this certainly won't be the last time we talk about LIV.
Yeah, that's for sure.
You know, it is, like I said, the biggest shakeup in professional golf in decades. And the news will keep rolling out. We'll still keep hearing more players. And one thing we didn't mention before, talked about it, got a feeling, and you first said this, and I think you're right, there might be some players' lawyers who might have an idea that like, hey, we might be able to, you know, you guys make the jump. Let us fight the legal battle. The PGA Tour can't ban you.
Yes.
You know, that's speculation, but our thought is that you never know. The people might have that where they can say, go play and we'll get some court battles. We'll get you back on that PGA Tour if you want to be. Who knows?
Who knows? Right.
Who knows?
We'll see.
It's going to unfold in the weeks to come. So like I said, make sure you guys, if not already, subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. We've got some great interviews coming up, and we'll keep you posted on the LIV Tour as it continues to roll out here in the States. All right? Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll see everybody again next week.